All right, let's take a quick tour through this Airtable template for contract operations. With this app, you'll be able to extract key terms from your customer contracts and then operationalize those into workflows such as activating your marketing and publicity rights or preparing for a renewal conversation. You'll also be able to ask Omni, Airtable's always-on AI collaborator, questions about the entire portfolio of contracts so you can better understand your risk and exposure across the entire portfolio. So let's dive into how this app works. So let's start here on the interface layer. Within Airtable, there are interfaces, which is where we actually use the app and interact with the data as part of our work. We have the data layer itself, and then we have automations. When we're using the app, it will look like this. And then to get back into the edit mode, to edit interfaces or to view the data, just click on the name of the app in the top left and then head to edit pages for interfaces or view data, which will drop you here into the data layer. So let's actually start in the data layer for this tour. So in the data layer, we have a table for documents and a table for customers. So very, very simple structure here. And we have all of our customer contracts set up in this documents table. And so each of these records represents a particular document with a customer. You could have multiple documents for a given customer, say an MSA, and then maybe several order forms all tagged to that same customer. But in this example, we just have the contracts here for a handful of customers. And we have these AI agents that have extracted key terms from every contract. So let's talk about this main concept here in Airtable. We call them field agents. So right here as fields within your database, you have this AI agent that can take actions for you and perform work for you. So this first one here is called high risk terms commentary. So we have instructed this field agent with a very particular prompt to go in and review the actual text of those attachments, of those contract documents, and provide an analysis of what the most kind of high-risk terms from each party's perspective might be. And so every actual cell here contains quite a sophisticated and nuanced analysis covering off these different perspectives. And so it has actually gone and read that whole document and then written up these considerations from each party's perspective. And that's going to help our teams prepare for the next renewal conversation. This output will only get better and better if you are able to also provide it context on your business and some of the key challenges or common situations you find yourself in your unique context. You can add that directly into the prompt here. So everything you see in the prompt is editable. You can come in and make any changes and then save that prompt, and that agent will get smarter and smarter with the more context that you give it. So that one's producing quite a nuanced and complete output. We also have several other agents here that are just simply extracting some of the key facts from each document. So for example, really simple one, what are the payment terms? And we've instructed this agent to actually choose from a set of options, net 30, net 60, and so on. And you can see that it's actually returned a particular option from that set of choices right here. What's awesome about field agents in Airtable is that they always cite their sources when they're looking at documents. So if you click this little icon right here beside the agent and you click into the document, you're actually going to see this yellow box highlighting where exactly on that document that information came from. So you're always able to verify the work that the agents have done. So with the sample data here, we are extracting 10 different common elements of contracts covering SLAs, liability caps, indemnification, confidentiality or NDA agreements, and so on. We have these kind of pick list options here for common choices that you might apply to each of those terms. And then we also have another set of agents that are extracting that actual text into this structured data format. So we've gone from basically free text documents that really cannot be used in any sort of structured or operational way to now a set of data that can actually power workflows and that we can analyze and assess as a whole. So let's take a look at one of the types of workflows that we might be able to build here. So using the data we pull in around publicity rights, for example, we have this automation. So now we're over on the automations tab. Automations in Airtable, basically a way to say, hey, if something happens in the app or if something changes with our data, let's go and take a specific action. And so in this case, this automation is triggered when a record matches conditions. And so we are saying when the publicity rights has the option chosen by the field agent of either being granted outright or granted with conditions, and the actual text of that other field agent we saw that's pulling the actual text of the contract over. As long as that field is not empty, we want there to be something in that field. That analysis is complete, essentially. We are going to then send an email to our marketing team. And so that is the action, and we can configure the content of that email right here. So setting the subject, for example, to take the actual customer name on that record, and then populating out the body of that email with the value that was returned for customer name and the value that was returned for publicity rights extracted text, so that we can read exactly what those conditions are. Maybe if there's any stipulations around particular types of marketing that are permitted or not permitted, the marketing team can then refer to that and act appropriately. On the automations tab, there are a couple other nuances to the extraction as well that are worth pointing out. So when we get the customer name returned by the field agent in text that looks at the document, what we're doing with this automation is just copying that over to the linked record field for customers. And that actually establishes a link between the document and the customer in kind of a formal way. So our field agent gives us text, then we take that text via automation and literally just copy it right over here into this customer field. Once we've done that, now we actually have a link. You see this white line at the top, formally linking this document to that customer. And so if we go over to the customers table, now each record is a customer. And as we mentioned, each customer could have many documents associated with it. Also, the way we're extracting dates is using automations here. So when that document field is not empty, so essentially there is something in that document field to look at, we're going to generate text with AI in a specified date format, and then drop that directly into a date field here in Airtable. So now that you understand the template setup, let's talk about how you make this app your own. So in your contracts, you're probably going to have terms that are more unique or important for your business that you want to extract and build workflows around. So on top of those example terms that we're already asking Omni to extract from each document, let's ask for a few more. It is going to look at the context of the data that's in our app. It's going to look at the way that our app is already structured and come up with a plan for the best way to extract these terms into new field agents that are going to live right within our database, right within our app. And here we are. Omni has created 3 new field agents that are going to extract, in this case, with my example, the contract term, force majeure, and security stipulations from each contract. So let's put those agents to work now, and they are starting to extract that language. So if that term does exist in the contract, it's going to be extracted here. And we could also configure this agent to return a single select or multiple select type field so that we can get that type of format that we had here with these other ones where we actually have multiple options. But just for the sake of example, let's look at what the agents did for the text-based response here. So contract term here on this first contract, let's go inspect that work, click into the source, and there we go. Looks like it was indeed looking at the correct section there. And look what Omni actually did here. It not only just created the fields, but it actually wrote the specified prompts directly within each of those field agents and gave it the appropriate context for it to complete its task. Even in the case here of an example force majeure extraction, it's given an example of what that clause might sound like so that the agent has the best possible chance of looking at the correct section of that contract and returning the section that we are interested in. So with all of this data in our app, the other thing we can do with Omni, in addition to building out our app and adding more field agents, is ask questions about the data contained in the app. So here's an example question here. We want to ask not just a fact-finding question, but a question that's actually going to require some skill and judgment on the part of Omni to go and read across all contracts using that extraction and that structure that the field agents have created to inform its response. Omni is going to reason through that entire data set and come back here now with a response that cites its sources and gives a very reliable and strategic judgment that we can use to make better decisions based off of. So in this case, it's identified a specific customer that has particularly restrictive confidentiality terms, and then has even done some comparison to other companies to give us a sense of what makes that abnormal. Okay, and finally, let's come back to the interface layer. Again, this is where we actually visualize and interact with our data. So we have this document review interface here that I'll launch, which shows you per document all of these extracted terms so you can get kind of a really up close and detailed view of the story of that document. We also, under the review tab here, have ways of looking across all of the documents and all the data in your app in a more visual way. So you can, of course, interact with the data directly and make edits to the field agents and to the structure of your app in the data layer. The interface layer is a great place to actually view and share that data with your stakeholders without needing to give them the entire editing and creation controls that you would have as the workflow owner. Also up on the interface layer is where you can create things like dashboards. So if you want to visualize with some charts the breakdown of how terms are being enforced or included in all of your contracts, this is a great place to do it. And again, you can ask Omni to create these dashboards for you. So in edit mode, opening up Omni from the left-hand side, just give Omni a prompt and it will go to work understanding the intent behind your request and generating a new element of this app, in this case, an interface, to better support your workflow. And there we go, looking at the new dashboard that Omni just created for us, using some pie charts here to understand the distribution of typical terms that we have across all of our contracts. So that's how you can take your customer contracts as these static PDF documents and turn them into real, structured, usable data that actually powers operational workflows for you and your team at scale. Make this app your own, add your own field agents, add your own documents and data, and consider what workflows for your stakeholders could be powered with automations that notify them about new terms or new contracts or any changes that affect their function. That's what you can do with contract operations in Airtable.